17 seconds. That's how long it took for the entire country to realize this wasn't going to be a normal TV debate. "Roll it," the director whispered. The control room went dark except for the glow of a single screen, a folder stamped Epstein case, unsealed. Then the camera cut to the studio, and to a face everyone knew. Denzel Washington. No movie lights. No red carpet smile. Just a black jacket, tired eyes, and a look that said he did not come here to play. Across from him at the glass table sat Karoline Mercer, former White House communications strategist, now the smooth, unshakable defender of the system on every network that would book her. 3, 2, 1. The red light blinked on. Tonight, the host's voice boomed, newly released Epstein files are rocking Washington. Names, meetings, logs. And sitting at this table are two people who see this moment very differently. The camera pushed in on Denzel. He didn't wait for his introduction. "If these files are real," he said, voice steady, "then this isn't a scandal. It's a map. A map of who sold their soul, and who helped them hide it." Karoline forced a smile. "Or," she replied, "it's a messy pile of half-facts weaponized by people who want to burn down institutions they don't understand." The host blinked. The script in his hands suddenly felt useless. On social media, viewers barely had time to type, "Is this really live?" Before the first clip of the folder, the faces, the tension, hit the algorithm. If you just clicked this video and thought you were about to watch another forgettable panel, you were wrong. Because on this night, when the Epstein files opened, all hell really did break loose, and Denzel Washington was about to corner Karoline Mercer in front of millions. 20 minutes earlier, the studio had felt like any other Tuesday night circus. Producers darted between cameras, adjusting lenses, shouting into headsets. An intern checked the teleprompter, scrolling through neatly written questions like, "What do these documents actually prove?" and "Are we overreacting?" None of those questions would survive the first 5 minutes. Denzel arrived quietly, no entourage, just his longtime friend and advisor Nate. He set his phone face down on the dressing room counter, stared at his reflection, and let out a slow breath. "You sure you want to do this live?" Nate asked. "If it's not live," Denzel said, "it'll never air the way it should." Across the hall, Karoline was rehearsing. Makeup perfect, blazer sharp, bullet points spread out on the table, chain of custody, context, national security implications. She'd survived worse storms than this, she told herself. Nothing a calm voice and a few big words couldn't smother. The host, Milo Graves, paced the hallway between them like a referee who knew both fighters were out of his weight class. His show, Graves lived on controversy, but this felt radioactive. "We stick to the script," he told his staff. "No surprises." But the surprise was already printed in ink he couldn't control, hundreds of pages, released that morning by a federal judge. Flight logs. Donation records. Visitor lists. Some names were blacked out. Many weren't. The audience filled in, buzzing. Students. Office workers. A retired nurse clutching a sign that said, "No one above the law." They didn't come for nuance. They came for truth, or at least the feeling of it. As the warm-up comic finished, the floor manager leaned toward Denzel. 10 seconds, Mr. Washington. Just remember, we're live." Denzel nodded, eyes fixed on the folder in front of him. Karoline slid her notes under her hand like a poker player hiding her cards. The countdown began. And somewhere between 3 and 2, both of them realized the same thing. Whatever happened next wasn't going back in the box. The opening montage barely ended before Milo lobbed the first softball. "Denzel, you've seen the documents. What do you make of them?" He could have hedged. Could have said, "We need more information." Instead, he went straight for the artery. "I see patterns," Denzel said. "People with money and power moving in the same circles as a predator. Over and over. And I see a government that looked away until it couldn't. Karoline leaned forward, eyes flashing. That's a nice speech, she replied, but the justice system isn't a movie set. These are messy, incomplete files. Some names might be there by accident. Some meetings might mean nothing. Denzel turned, really looking at her. The audience felt the shift, the invisible line where polite debate ends and confrontation begins. Kara, he said, ditching her full name like only someone who'd watched her career from the beginning could, how many accidental meetings does it take before you stop calling it nothing? A low murmur rolled through the crowd. Milo jumped in. To be fair, Karoline, you did work for an administration named in these documents. And I followed the law every single day, she snapped, the polished media smile cracking. I'm not going to sit here and let an actor question my integrity based on leaked PDFs and Twitter threads. Denzel didn't blink. I'm not questioning you because I'm an actor, he said. I'm questioning you because you sat in rooms the rest of us never see. And the rooms in those files look a lot like the rooms you used to defend. On TikTok, the duet videos started instantly, split screens, reaction faces, captions like, he didn't stutter, and, she wasn't ready for that line. Back in the studio, Milo's team stared at the monitor where the live viewer count climbed faster than they'd ever seen. This was no longer a segment. It was a trial, and nobody knew who'd walk out looking guilty. Let's show the audience what we're talking about, Milo said, voice tight. On the massive screen behind them, a scanned page from the Epstein archive appeared. Names blurred, dates and locations crystal clear. Private islands. Manhattan townhouses. Foreign embassies. Year after year after year. A highlighted entry glowed brighter than the rest. Off-the-record policy dinner, D.C., 9 attendees, including senior communications advisor. The camera cut to Karoline. She didn't move, but the blood drained from her face. Is that you? Denzel asked quietly. The question wasn't scripted. The control room erupted. Cut away, someone shouted. Stay on them, the director replied. We're not missing this. Karoline swallowed. Off the record doesn't mean criminal, she said, each word painfully careful. It means confidential. It means context you can't tweet out in all caps. Denzel leaned in, elbows on the table. Context is when you don't know what's happening behind the scenes, he said. You knew. You were paid to know. Those kids didn't get context. They got silence. A gasp rippled through the crowd. For half a second, Karoline looked like she might walk off set. Instead, she did what she always did. Counterattack. You talk like you've been in those rooms, she said, trying to sound amused. But you've spent your life in front of cameras, not in briefings. You have the luxury of moral clarity, because nothing you say actually has consequences. Denzel's jaw tightened. Tell that to the families who watched powerful men protect a predator, he answered. Tell them this is just performance. The lights suddenly felt hotter. The studio air, thinner. Milo glanced at the teleprompter. The next question, how should Congress respond? Looked laughably small now. He knew the show had veered off the rails, but he also knew something rare was happening. A man who couldn't be fired was facing down a woman whose career had been built on never admitting fear. And for the first time, the fear was visible. The broadcast cut to a commercial, but the story didn't pause. In the 30 seconds of ads, we jumped backward. 2 months earlier, in a quiet restaurant in Georgetown, Karoline sat across from a lobbyist whose name never made headlines but whose checks always cleared. The rumors about the archive, he'd said casually, swirling his drink. It's coming. Names, logs, the works. Kara laughed it off at first. Rumors floated through D.C. every day. Most died before breakfast. If it's real, it'll hit everybody, she'd replied. Not just my side. He'd smiled without humor. Your side is the one that preached law and order while hopping on private jets with the guy, he said. You might want to dust off your talking points. That night she'd gone home and opened her old secure inbox for the first time in years. There they were, threads, invites, small off-list gathering, reminders. None of them said crime. All of them smelled like it. She'd almost deleted everything. Almost. Then the call came. Graves Live wants you for a special on the archive, her agent had said. They're putting you across from Denzel Washington. Huge audience. This could reset your legacy. Her legacy. Not the victims. Not the truth. Her reputation. In the present, as the commercial break timer ticked down, Karoline replayed that decision and felt a knot twist in her stomach. On the other side of the studio, Denzel was having his own flashback. A mother in tears at a town hall meeting months earlier, holding a photo of a daughter who'd been trafficked and never found. They always know, the mother had sobbed. The men in suits. They always know and they never care. That memory was why he'd said yes to this show. Not for ratings. Not for clout. For that one question, did they know? The countdown hit 3. Makeup artists darted away. Milo's voice echoed through the studio. Back in 5, 4. Both of them straightened, strapped their armor back on. The war wasn't over. The real round hadn't even started. We're back, Milo announced, a little too brightly. Before the break, we were talking about one specific entry from the files. Let's not pretend this is just about paperwork, Denzel cut in. This is about responsibility. He turned to Karoline so fully that Milo might as well not have existed. You were in the room that night, weren't you? She exhaled sharply. If I say yes, you'll act like that proves everything. If I say no, you'll call me a liar. That's not a good faith conversation, Denzel. Good faith, he repeated slowly. Good faith is what those victims had when they went to the police and got ignored. Good faith is what the public had when you went on TV and told us nothing to see here. He slid a printed page across the table. The camera zoomed in. A highlighted line glowed under the studio lights: messaging strategy, deflect focus from financial clients, emphasize isolated incident. Spokesperson, K. Mercer. Karoline froze. Where did you get that? She whispered. It's in the public release, Denzel replied. Anyone can read it, if they're willing to stare it in the face. The audience went silent. Even the hum of the lights seemed to fade. You're cherry-picking emails from a crisis meeting, Karoline shot back, voice rising. My job was to protect the institution, not investigate every rumor. Your job, Denzel said, was to tell the truth. He didn't raise his voice. That almost made it worse. You say you protected an institution, he continued, but if that institution's first instinct was to shield a predator instead of children, what exactly were you protecting? Karoline looked at Milo for backup. He stared down at his notes, suddenly very interested in the blank margin. For the first time in her career, she was truly alone on camera. And Denzel? He hadn't moved an inch, but he had just cornered her in front of the entire country. While they argued on set, the outside world detonated. Clips of the confrontation hit X, TikTok, and Instagram Reels before the segment even ended. One 15-second cut, Denzel sliding the email across the table, Karoline whispering, "Where did you get that?" Racked up 1 million views in under 10 minutes. Hashtags trended simultaneously. Hashtag Epstein Files, hashtag Cornered Karoline, hashtag Denzel Said It. On Discord servers, law students dissected every word like it was Supreme Court precedent. On Twitch, political streamers rebroadcast the show with their faces in the corner, mouths open. One viral tweet read, "Denzel is doing more cross-examination in real time than half of Congress did in 3 years." Back in the studio's basement, the network's legal team huddled around a TV. "He's quoting the public files," one lawyer muttered. "We can't shut that down." "What about defamation?" another asked. "She wrote those emails," the first replied. "She'll never admit it on air, but if we try to censor this, it looks worse." Upstairs, producers shoved new graphics into the system, breaking, "Epstein files rock Capitol," and "Did government officials look away?" Milo's ear buzzed with conflicting instructions. "Let them go," the executive producer finally said. "This is history. We're just lucky the cameras are ours." In living rooms across the country, people who normally tuned out politics leaned forward. They didn't know all the legal details. They didn't care about procedural nuance. They saw one thing. A man asking the questions nobody else seemed willing to ask. And a woman who suddenly didn't look as confident as the Chiron under her name claimed. "We're almost out of time," Milo said, though no one believed he meant it. "Final question, to both of you, what does accountability look like now?" Karoline jumped in first, clinging to familiar ground. "We need thorough investigations, not witch hunts," she said. "If crimes were committed, people should face charges. But we can't let this turn into a televised execution." Denzel tilted his head. "Funny," he said. "Because when this man was alive, the execution wasn't televised. It was quiet. It was private jets and sealed doors and NDAs." He looked straight into the lens. "Accountability starts when the people who protected him feel even a fraction of the fear he made those girls live with every single day." The room went still. Karoline's hands, folded tightly together, began to tremble. "You talk like I was in charge of everything," she burst out. "I was a spokesperson, not a kingmaker. I didn't sign laws. I didn't control prosecutors. I gave statements someone else wrote." "And when you knew those statements were lies?" Denzel asked. No answer. "Kara," he said softly, dropping the performance, "I'm not asking if you're a monster. I'm asking if, at any point, you looked at what you were saying and thought, this is wrong, and kept going anyway." Her eyes glistened. Mascara threatened to break ranks. For a moment, viewers saw something they rarely got from her. Not spin, not calculation, just raw, human panic. "We all tell ourselves it's bigger than us," she whispered. "That someone else will fix it. That if we try, we'll be destroyed." "Maybe," Denzel replied. "But maybe destruction was deserved a long time ago." The stage lights hummed. Milo stared at the countdown clock. His show was over, but history wasn't. What came out of Karoline's mouth next would decide which side of it she landed on. She could have lied again. Could have doubled down, blamed fake news, walked out to applause from the same echo chambers that had always protected her. Instead, Karoline Mercer did something no one expected, least of all herself. "Yes," she said, voice barely audible. "I knew some of it was rotten." Milo's head snapped up. The control room went silent. "I saw names on guest lists that shouldn't have been there," she continued. "I heard jokes in green rooms that weren't jokes. And when I asked questions, I was told. We don't get paid to worry about that." She laughed once, bitter and small. They were right. We got paid to manage outrage. To keep people angry enough to vote but not angry enough to burn the whole thing down. Denzel didn't smile. This wasn't victory. It was a body on the battlefield finally admitting it had been shot. "So why are you saying this now?" he asked. Karoline looked at the camera, at millions of strangers she'd spoken to for years without ever really talking to. Because I spent so long defending the system that I forgot systems are just people, she said. And if the people are cowards, the system is evil. A single clap echoed from the studio audience, then another, then a small, uneasy wave of applause. Not celebration, recognition. Denzel nodded slowly. That's the thing about files, he said. They show what happened. They don't decide what we do next. He turned back to the viewers. If you're watching this, remember, nobody up here is a hero. Not me. Not her. The only heroes are the ones who spoke up when it cost them everything. Our job now is not to pretend we didn't know. It's to decide who we're going to be after knowing. Themes of guilt, complicity, and courage hung in the air like thick smoke. The title of the episode wrote itself. When the Epstein files opened, all hell broke loose. But the subtitle, the one that would live in people's heads, was simpler. Silence is a choice. The episode ended with no music, no clever sign-off. Just Milo whispering, "We'll be right back," to a nation that knew nothing would be the same when they were. Within an hour, every major network was replaying the clip. Karoline's confession. Denzel's quiet, relentless questions. The page sliding across the table like a piece of evidence in a courtroom that belonged to everyone. Think pieces exploded. One columnist wrote. For the first time, a professional defender of power admitted on air that the script is the problem. Another asked. Why did it take an actor to do the cross-examination our institutions refuse to? Karoline disappeared from TV for a while. Rumors swirled, closed-door testimonies, subpoenas, severed contracts. Whether she became a whistleblower or a cautionary tale depended on what she chose off-camera. Denzel returned to his life, films, family, community work, but the confrontation followed him like a shadow. At airports, people walked up to him, some in suits, some in fast food uniforms. You said what we couldn't, one woman told him, eyes wet. Thank you. He'd shake his head, gently. I just didn't look away, he'd answer. That's all any of us can do now. Months later, in a college media class, a professor played the episode for a room full of students who'd grown up on clips and comments instead of speeches and hearings. He paused on a still frame, Denzel leaning forward, email on the table, Karoline's mask cracking. This, he said, is the moment when performance and power collided, and for once, truth didn't blink. The students scribbled notes. Some just stared. On the internet, the clip kept circulating, long after algorithms moved on. People shared it late at night with captions like, "Remember when this slipped past the censors," and "This is what accountability could look like." And somewhere in a hard drive, the Epstein files sat, ugly, undeniable. Documents can't change a country. People do. But on that night, in that studio, when the files opened and all hell broke loose, millions of people watched one simple thing happen. A man refused to be quiet. A woman finally stopped lying to herself. And a nation realized silence had always been the most dangerous accomplice in the room. Truth doesn't explode quietly. Tonight, it cracked open a system that spent years pretending it was unbreakable. Files don't lie. Power does. So the real question isn't what was exposed. It's who has the courage to face what comes next.